Hello there, my dear YouTube friends. In this video, we'll be looking at one of the Figma tools that we have all very useful that we'll be using throughout our entire process of UI UX designing. So in this particular video, we'll be looking at shapes. So what are shapes basically? So shapes are the ones that are actually the tools that make up every single uh, component. For example, there is a shape that can be used for a button, a shape that can be used for a table, a shape that can be used for a frame. So shapes is the most one of the most fundamental tool that we can use in Figma for uh, every single time. So that's the reason why shapes is really important in this particular Figma UI UX design process. So let's get deeper. What exactly shape are we going to learn about? So in this case, we'll be learning about in this particular shapes topic. We'll be learning certain in detail. For example, in terms of shapes, you'll be learning about borders as well as colors, and lastly but not least, shadows. So these are three main things that we will be covering the entire course in this particular video course here. So let's get started by actually looking into in our Figma canvas. And there you go. This is a simple Figma canvas, which is actually a blank. And this is how you'll be able to see as well when you go to Figma and you open a single blank Figma project as well. So as you can see, this is a simple blank project. So first step is that let's go to this particular menu here. This is one of the menus. So you need to go to this particular menu. As you can see, this is a square shaped menu. And what you guys can do is that you can just uh, just gonna click on this particular option here, and as you can see, these are all the shapes that we can actually come up with. For example, there's a rectangular shape, then there's a line, arrow, ellipse, polygon, and stars, and there's also a place image here. So as you can see here, we can actually, this is the most common one, which is the rectangle here. Rectangle can be used for anything almost. Okay, let's get started with just by creating a simple rectangular shape here by just moving your cursor from your by clicking on left click, and I'm just going to make something like this here. So make simple shape here. It's just a simple rectangular shape here. So in this particular rectangular shape here, it has a lot of other, how do you say, very detailed functionalities that you can actually use it inside your UI UX designing. For example, the first of all that I would like to highlight here is that, as you can see on your right hand side, this is the panel here to control all the functionalities that this particular shape can exist. For example, let's go to this particular left hand side menu panel here. So you can just, let me just go, just gonna close this by the way, and let's go to this, the first one here. So the first one is basically it's basically you can control the height, the width, something like this, and you can actually just I mean change the width of the shape here. For example, like this, as you can see, the width is changing here, as well as height will be changing when we actually just move it here. And also it can actually can be controlled from here. For example, let's say if I put 1000 pixels height, and as you can see, the height is really long, and we're just going to undo this. Okay, so this is basically the functionality so that you can actually control the height and the width of this particular shape here. And the next thing here is that, as you can see, this is a simple a rotation here. Let's say you would like to rotate this to a particular angle, and as you can see, by holding shift you are able to make it to the most common angles. For example, on 180, 165, 135, 90, and then the 0, and then there's a couple of more. Okay, next thing is, let's look at borders here. Borders is really important. As you can see, this is a simple shape here, but the edges are, the corners are very sharp at the four of its edges. So by clicking on this here, as you can see, you can actually change or give some corner radius. For example, let's say if I were to give 10, and as you can see, there is some, like, there is a curved corner here. It is not sharp, no longer it is called sharp. So as you can see, this is 10. And let's say if you like to give the 10 to only to one part of the corners. For example, you can actually click on this here, and you can see there's 4 of the sides of 10 pixels of radius. Let's go, and this is top left here, which is here, top left. and let's see if I were to give 0. And so you can see this part is sharp, and this is part, the rest of the parts are all not sharp. Yeah, they are all curved at the same time. So this is the most really important part of this particular, the first part of the shapes tool here, which you can actually either control the borders here, the angle, the width, and the height, and the location of this in based on x-axis and y-axis. Okay, I think we have just covered the first part of this particular video, and let's go to the second part of this particular video. Let me just bring this down and let's go to, yeah, this is the one I was talking about. It is called fill. Okay, fill is basically the color, and not just color, it says there are more just something besides color. For example, there's a gradient here. Let me just go and make this something like this, and this one is should be like this. Okay, so you can see gradient. Okay, let me just go through one by one. Okay, first of all, let's go to solid first. So solid is basically is the color that we give, that we would like to give it to 100%. I mean, there's no transition between two or more colors. It's just one single color, and it is solid color, and there's no other transfusion of other colors are included inside this particular field. So next thing is that let's look at we need to go to this particular opacity. This is the percentage of how much of visibility that you would like to give to this particular shape that you have just made. For example, let's say now currently it's 100%, so it shows 100% of its visibility, and let's give 50%. So 50%, half, I mean, like, it has like almost half of this particular has been become transparent, so it's called yeah, that's why it gives 50%. Let's say we give 0%, and when you give it when you give it 0, it will become very transparent. So that's the reason why it's 0%. So usually we'll use 100%. That's the most common and the most helpful one, and that's the most default one, by the way. And next, inside fill the color, let's look at linear. So linear here is actually a gradient. Gradient is basically is like a transition of colors between two or more colors. Transition between one color to another color. That's the basic idea of gradient. So let's say this is the blue color, and I would like to go from blue to, let's say, like a light blue here, and this should be dark blue. Okay, as you can see here, there is a transition between light blue to dark blue. And as you can see here, this is something that you would find it really nice here. For example, let's say this is dark blue and this is light blue. I can actually just control it like this or like this. Just can make the angle to be nice like this. Okay, this is nice, by the way, and this is better, I would say, in terms of in aesthetics than the solid color, because solid is just one color. And if you were to impress your clients, it would be better if you were to choose gradient more. So that's the whole idea of this particular gradient tool here. So next, let's look at what else other can we find here. And let's, besides linear, this we can also find radial. So radial is more like a circle, like this, like a circle. As you can see, this is a circle here. Let me just delete this. This is more like a circle. Okay, and you can find something like that. Okay, circle, like a circle like color. For example, let's say if I give white, yeah, now it's more obvious, right? So this is more like a circle, by the way, like this. Just keep it like this. Okay, there you go. So some simple radial gradient. Next thing is angular. Angular has some angle here, but we don't, most of the time we don't be using this for now. Next thing, let's look at diamond. Diamond is like more like a angular, I mean radial just now, but it's really sharp here. The edges are really sharp. And then there's image. Image is like something like this. Okay, let me just go back. Okay, okay, I think we have just covered about the fill color here, which is the colors here. You can actually choose any of the colors. Let's say if you go to solid here, you can actually choose any of the colors that you think that will be best suit your shape here. For example, there's white, there's black, blue, and then you can change from any of these colors here. Okay, that's really nice. Okay, so that is the color part of this particular shape. And next, look at others. For example, there's strokes and effects. So there's two more left that we can actually discuss about. So let's first of all look at strokes. So before I'll be like giving you an idea of what is stroke, let me just switch off this particular field here. like I don't want fill. Example, I can just remove this to opacity to 0. Okay, now as you can see here, okay, as you can see here, I can actually remove this particular field here. As you can see, once I fill here, there's no like color or any sort of like a fill. Yeah, exactly, there's no fill for this particular shape that you have just made. But let's say if you don't want fill, I want to give stroke. So by clicking on stroke plus button here, you get to have this particular shape, this particular like outline. Yeah, that's the word, outline of your shape here. So we're just going to click on it, and then you can actually choose your color of your outline, what kind of color you like to have, example from red to blue, or you can actually choose from linear as well. The same idea works here as well. And let's look at also how thick that you would like to have your thickness of your outline. For example, as you can actually thick can go up to as much as you want. Next is inside. You can choose inside or outside. Outside will be the most common one, because outside is the most used one. Okay, I think that's all for the stroke part here. The next and the most important part would be really interesting one is, I would say, I mean, let me just give some fill here before we move on. I want to give a fill of white. White will be nice for this particular part of the video. Example, next thing I want to add is effects here. So effects is where you can find drop shadow option here. So drop shadow is basically that you can find there's some kind of like shadow at the bottom here, right? So that's the idea. That's the basic idea of this shadow tool here. So as you can see here, you can actually maneuver your options here. For example, how like you would like to place your shadow just exactly at the 0 axis, and a bit to the up here, and that's the basic idea of the placement of the shadow. And next thing is blur here. Let's make it a bit more blur. Okay, there you go. And let's make it less blur, and it becomes sharp here. So it's better to give more blur. Okay, this is nice. And the spread is how big you would like to have your shadow here. Usually we keep the spreads to be 0 to have a professional look, and something like this, which looks something like this. And next is opacity. So opacity is something that we usually keep it very low. For example, 25% is actually a lot. Let's give like 10, and 10 is just enough. Just enough for your most of the time that you would like to have it. Yeah, 10 is the most common one, by the way. Okay, I think we have covered drop shadow here. We have also have inner shadow. Inner shadow is something that's inside the shadow, that's inside your layer, but we seldom use this particular tool. And there's layer background. I mean, layer background is basically you are making a blur layer, making your layer to be a blur, and then you're covering the background of this particular layer, and the background becomes blurred. That's the basic idea of layer. And also we also have background blur. Background blur is you will keep whatever you have at the back of your shape, it'll become blur, and that's the basic idea of this particular background blur as well. So next up, let's I think we have covered all the parts here. For example, there's this is the border, this is the color, this is the stroke, this is the shadow, and that's it, I guess. And yeah, I hope you guys have learned something new from this particular video. I think we have covered almost every single part of this particular video. Okay, I think we are done, by the way. So thank you guys for watching this entire video till end. This is basically a simple yet really brief episode of teaching you guys on how to use this particular shape tool in your next UI UX project, or it can be even in your current UI UX project that you're currently working on. So thank you guys for watching this video until the end, and hope we'll be meeting in another episode of Figma tutorials in the coming future. So thanks again. We'll meet later. Peace.